the enemy has cards! Originally, I was going to give the enemies a completely different system for their actions than the player has, but now the enemy has a deck, a hand, and a discard pile, just like the player. Yeah, so I think that having the enemy have cards, it allows for things like you could do something to affect your enemy's hand. Like, say you could do some kind of attack which removes a card from their hand, or you could do some kind of scan that allows you to see what's in their hand. And if you know what's in their hand, and let's say they don't have any attacks, you know you don't need to necessarily boost your shields this round. Or if you see they do have a very powerful attack, then you could say do some evasive maneuvers. It gives a lot of opportunity for different strategies to emerge. One feature of this game will be the salvaging of alien technology. So I think it would be cool to see a card used against you and then later acquire some tech from the wreckage of a ship after defeating it and get access to those cards yourself. The quest for an elegant solution to the card and action system continues. The current system started to fall apart when I tried to implement the next feature, delayed attacks. Trying to modify this thing here, trying to change one thing, having an animation occur later, has caused this cascade of effects throughout the code. It's rippled through them, probably because I'm doing it wrong. I think it's often difficult to see the flaws in a system until it's being used. I sometimes get frustrated that I have to keep redesigning things, but it's a small price to pay for having a good foundation to build on. One of the tactical aspects of gameplay will be the ability to direct where your shots are going, like if you want to target the enemy weapons or engines. The beginnings of this functionality are now in place. So you can now click on different things to target. The interface is bad, but it functionally works. So if I target the laser here and fire a missile, yeah, also the delayed attacks work as well. So the missile now is in transit. If we end the turn, the enemy does some things, including firing their own missile, and then our missile hits and the damage is taken to the laser but not the shield. Still some bugs. In order to solve the problem I was having with delayed actions, I decided to move the functionality of doing the actions into the code of the actions themselves. For every type of action there is a different class of scriptable object. This means each action type can have specialized code and references. Before I was using this action element system and it was kind of a mess. Yeah, each of these scriptable objects actually has its own code. So rather than handling all, like, I had a long if statement, if else, if else, if else, for all the different types of actions handled in the action handler. Now it just it calls do action on the action itself. Some of them are really simple, like get the target, draw some cards, and stuff like that. It allows for things like with the launch missile, you just specify here which type of action to occur after the delay, which is missile impact. The bridge has been looking pretty bare for a while now, so it's time for a redesign. So I still want the view screen, right? I want the view screen to be like the center of everything we're seeing. With a nice display of the enemy ship and all the shit hitting it and the explosions and stuff. But we also want a way to target specific parts of the ship, like their engines, their weapons, and the shield generator and stuff like that. I had in mind something similar to the game Starfleet Command, where a diagram of the ship has a number of systems overlaid on top, and you click on those to select a target, like the layout of the enemy ship. So all the fun stuff happening here, and over here we have the systems, and you basically select these, and then you fire, and you will have the same sort of thing for our own ship here. We have lots of Type 10 phasers and quantum torpedoes because it's a sovereign class and it's a badass. Only some types of attack will be able to target specific parts of the enemy. So in order to avoid confusion, I want to make it so that the target selection occurs for each attack. Similar to how it works in Slay the Spire, where an arrow appears when playing a card with a target. The way targeting works right now is you just click on something and then you fire, but I think what I want to do instead is have some, so if I bring this up here, instead of dragging the card around, it would have like an arrow pointing from the card to one of the systems. Or potentially I could click it up here and then it would display a list of things I want to target. Not sure which one of those is better. During the stream, I discussed several options for how to structure the interface. After drawing a mock-up of the ship diagram showing the various systems, it was clear that these icons are too small and it would get tedious to try to select them for every attack. Another idea was for the main view screen to be context sensitive, showing a different display when targeting an enemy system. So yeah, we could have a context sensitive view screen. So it would show the main view of the enemy ship most of the time. When you need to target a specific system, it brings this up. We could have a nice fun sort of interface for it, like appearing. It could be like beep, 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 nice beepy things. Because the whole point of the diagram is to have a quick way to look at the status of the enemy or the player's ship. The idea I'm going with now is to make the cards not really cards at all, but a kind of electronic pad or tablet. This means they can be context sensitive and change their displays when appropriate. When you play a card that can target a system on the enemy ship, it will switch to a larger view of the card and perhaps even have a little extra panel slide out to let you choose a target. Now that's the future right there. He's looking at this like, what the fuck am I holding? The graphics for the bridge are very placeholder so far. Here's an example of the sort of thing I'd like to create. Yeah, something like that, right? Now that looks great, but that's not... Imitations is a serious form of flattery. It's also the most serious form of copyright infringement, but yeah. And this is what I came up with for the bridge. The left and right displays with the ship status summaries for the player and enemy, the view screen in the middle, and the crew members at their stations. Still a lot more detail to add, of course. I'm going with some quite chunky pixels, partly because I like the look, but also because it will make it simpler to create fluid animations for the characters. The pixels are very chunky. I like chunky pixels, but they don't do great for angled text and visual displays. So I'm thinking that the displays themselves, the screens, will have higher resolution than the real world, which is kind of funny. Like the Super HD, they've got higher resolution than reality. The enemy ships that appear on the view screen will be low poly 3D models with chunky pixel art textures. I drew some basic ship textures in Sprite, and during the stream I had a go at building a ship with a plugin for Blender called Spritile. It's a great tool for placing polygons as tiles from a texture. I did find that it tends to favour designing objects that are made up of mostly square tiles though, and I found this a bit limiting. So I decided to try building a ship using more standard modelling techniques and then applying the textures afterwards using Spritile. Limitations feature design? Yeah, but what I mean is, so like, if you let the tools shape your design, that's not necessarily a good thing. Limitations are good, but like building something because it's easier to make with these tools, that's not necessarily what I want to do. I want to have an idea and make it work within those limitations, but not let those limitations dictate the design. I had some success with this technique, but it turned out to be more difficult to work with irregular shapes than I anticipated. I think this tool works well for objects that have a lot of rectangular shapes and right angles. It also seems tricky to maintain constant pixel sizes. I'm not sure if I'm just not using it correctly, but after some discussion with the chat, I decided to try some standard UV mapping techniques going forward. Thanks for watching. These streams are great for having instant feedback on what I'm working on, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. If you'd like to see them live, they're on Twitch at 6 PM BST every Thursday. And thank you to all my patrons who are now appearing on screen. See you next time.